Safari Small Schools is offering a free homeschool workshop for parents this summer on June 4th at 2 p.m. Central. To learn more, text Safari to 33777.
All right. Well, I am Rebecca Good, and I am here with Homeschool Conversations, and I have my guest, Dr. Teresa Sanders. We recorded, about 7 weeks ago, and unfortunately, the sound did not work out quite
Yeah.
as I had hoped. So I know YouTube viewers will sometimes forgive bad lighting, but they will not forgive bad sound. So I didn't want to release that. So Dr. Sanders has been gracious enough to come back today. So Dr. Sanders has started Safari Small School.
Yes.
And I wanted you to just, like we did last time, if you can just give some of your background and then just talk about how you started Safari Small School. And then we'll get into the other topics as we get going.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca, and thanks for having me. So, Safari Small Schools is a micro school that I started. About me, I'm former public school educator. I have maybe now, I think it's 16, 2006 until now. Um, Years of teaching experience, and that includes public, private, um, and now also this micro school. I also have 20 years of mental health experience. I worked in community mental health when I lived in California. And so those experiences, along with education, the mental health experience has been absolutely invaluable to my experience as an educator. So here I am today, having come out of public education and starting my own micro school. I'm special education certified, and my population that I prefer to work with and typically worked with were students with behavior problems, and they may or may not have had a co-occurring issue like autism or something else. They Most of the time they did not, but these are the kids who, for whatever reason, just could not function in the traditional classroom. So they were in a self-contained classroom with me.
Okay.
So those are the kids who I saw that they seemed to be the lowest priority as it related to special education. And there was never really any real expectation that they were going to achieve socially or academically. There were programs in place to deal with behavior. The IEPs dealt with behavior and addressed behavior, but really the unspoken understanding was, as long as they're not tearing up the classroom or harming themselves or anyone else, that really was the expectation. And that's across my whole education experience.
Hmm. Um, so what is Safari Small School? Tell us a
Safari
little bit about
Small
what you've started and kind of what a typical day is like.
Safari Small Schools is a 5 student micro school, and even though the title says schools plural, that's a future endeavor. Right now, it's just one campus. Safari Small Schools is a 5 student micro school where I serve the needs of children's grades pre-K through third, who, again, for whatever reason, are not thriving in the traditional classroom setting. Um, Behavior is usually involved, but my school is also for students who just simply need or could benefit from a small group, a small class, individualized instruction, a lot of hands-on interactive learning, and a good degree of fun as well, because I do put a lot of emphasis on enjoying learning. And so in Texas, we fall under homeschool rules because I didn't want government involvement in what I'm doing, because um, I don't want it is the government rules and regulations that are killing public education. And for me to come out and then invite the government in this is just counterproductive. So I survive solely on parent tuition, but that frees me up to be able to do what I know is right for my students.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned when you were working in the schools that it was kind of as long as the students weren't, how'd you phrase it, tearing up the
Yeah, as
room.
long as they weren't destroying the classroom, hurting themselves or hurting anyone else, everything was okay. And and usually, I have good classroom management because I have pretty good, relationship skills with my kids. So it worked out better. I worked out better than most. I wasn't the very, very best teacher out there, but I was pretty good. And I had a reputation for always having a well-maintained classroom. Well, there was no expectation truly that the kids were going to do anything, any learning or anything that. But in my classroom, they did learn.
Mm.
And then they also learned, we focused on behavior and stuff as well. But as long as they're not destroying the classroom, as long as they're not harming each other or harming themselves, that's really what the expectation is. Just behavior kids are not a priority in public education, at least not in my experience.
Right. Um, then this next question, and I want to get back to what you said about how you got out of the government school system and then you didn't want to bring them back in.
Mm-mm.
And this kind of goes with my question, how is a small school different from a traditional school? And specifically, what were those principles or strategies that you didn't want to bring in?
So my small school is different from traditional school in the sense that everything is built around the student. So I could have 5 different students in my class. That's my maximum enrollment. So that's one difference. They'll never in this campus. There'll never be more than 5 kids. So it's intentionally small so we can meet students' needs. That's one big difference. And so what happens is that the intentional small size and then the individualized instruction. These kids don't have to be on an IEP to receive individualized instruction. These kids are taught in the way that they learn best. They are also met academically where they are. So kids are not going to come here and this is where we are in the math curriculum. So if you're not quite there yet, you better kind of swim to catch up. No, that's not what we do. I will assess each student when they come in, and it'll take as long as it takes, and I'll find out where they are, and then instruction is tailored for where they are and working towards where they should be age or grade wise. So individualized instruction is another major difference from between what my small school and public schools. Public schools are on a scope and sequence to get kids ready for testing in the spring, for state testing in the spring. I don't state test here. I don't need to because I teach in a competency based way. So I look at the state standards, I look at what the state says kids should know, and then we look at them. I'll assess whether at their grade and age, if they know what they should know. And if they don't, then let's start there. If you're supposed to know how to multiply, but you don't know how to add and subtract, then we're going to start adding and subtracting first, regardless of how
Right.
old you are. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
we don't just jump in and you have to catch up because in the
Yeah.
public school system, teachers are frequently not allowed to fill gaps. It's, get these kids ready for the test, get them ready for the test. Okay, well, unless you're a magician, they're not going to be ready for the test if they don't know the skills. So,
Right.
so some kids can be taught strategies to beat the test and they may pass, but they didn't learn anything.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, and I was going to also touch on not only are the teachers not encouraged to fill in the gaps, but there's almost like a shame involved if the kids are not where they're supposed to be at this specific benchmark.
that's absolutely true. Teachers are judged professionally by where the kids are, regardless of where that child came in, what may be going on in that child's home or life. The teachers are judged if these kids are not scoring a certain way on these benchmarks, on these, not on the benchmarks, but on the progress testing, state testing. That reflects poorly on the teacher. which
Mhm.
is categorically unfair because if you don't allow the teacher to address the gaps,
Right.
most of the time those kids are not going to pass that test.
Yeah.
But
It's
it's
only
the
the ones who are gonna
self-awareness.
do well anyway. Yeah, they're just gonna keep
Yeah,
going, but the ones who actually need the help are not gonna get the help.
no. And I had when I very first started teaching back in 2006, that year, I had a teacher tell me, I asked her, so how do you manage if so many of your kids are low? How do you teach your class? She said, I shoot for the middle. So it's the kids who are in the middle who get the attention in the classroom. The kids who are low and the kids who are high are
Mhm.
kind of, the high kids can manage on their own.
Yeah.
The low kids are just left to be low
Yeah.
and they teach to the middle of the class. That is outrageous.
Yeah.
And she's a good teacher, but that's what the system has molded her into because we're looking for kids to pass a test. So they focus on the kids who have a chance at passing that test. And that's it. And you know what else? Like I experienced this with my own son. They hold on. They will hold kids back from their best to ensure they get that kid to take a test with them. And what I mean is this. I've seen kids a few times in the elementary setting that were rock stars. They were amazing. They needed to be someplace else. They needed to be
Yeah.
at a school that could better meet their higher academic needs.
Right.
Schools will not encourage parents to, hey, you know what, your child could be better served here or maybe in this private situation because academically they are way past what we're doing. No, they're never going to say that. They're going to keep your kid right there so you can help their scores. So your child can help their scores. Completely unfair. That is horrible, but they do it.